Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. Welcome to the, I've lost count of how many TSC meetings we've had so far. So we'll just call it the latest TSC meeting for the baseline protocol. We will be posting this to YouTube thanks to the efforts of our wonderful marketing volunteers and team. Looks like we've got a quorum. I see Eric. I don't know if anybody remembers Romper Room from way back in the 70s, but there was this, I see Eric, I see Zach, I see James.
Good reference, good callback there.
Yeah, that and Captain Kangaroo, right? Look it up on the internet, everybody. Mr. Green Jeans. Yeah, we're here again. It looks like, wow, we got almost everybody's on, if not everybody. I know that Stefan needs to tap out at some point. And let's just start right off on the agenda. I've got 5 items. Please put in the chat if there are any items that you would like to add. The first order of business is to lock in on a regular biweekly time and day. And if this is it, then say yay verily. If not, if it's going to be a real problem, I got to tell you, I don't know how many hours I put in working this out. It's one of those, unsolved problems is figuring out how to get lots of different time zones to work. Is anybody dissent on the time? Okay. I do think that Thursday has some advantages, right? Because that gives us a working day, not a weekend, to kind of do some retrospective on, and I don't mean that from an agile perspective, but just, to think back on what we reviewed on the TSC meeting and, enrich the SSC meeting the following Monday. So I think that is good. So I'm in if everybody else is. Thursday, going once, going twice. Thursday, 11 a.m., 11 a.m., 11 a.m. Do I hear 11:15? 11:15. So, yeah, okay. Kids kept us up really late last night, so I'm pretty punchy. Okay, so there it is. We've locked that in. Second order of agenda is Karthik, Brian, Kyle, Stefan giving us a short review of the SAP Dynamics demo that is really exciting everybody right now. You don't have to go into too much depth. Let's say 5 minutes on the issues. Then Kyle's going to give us a short preview on demand baselining, and because that might be the next thing that gets heaped on the stack. My general MO, everybody, is to kind of find in any given month or couple weeks or 3 to 4 weeks period of time something shiny, right? Something that unifies people and can so there's lots of stuff. I don't know if you've noticed, but probably the maintainers are seeing it. There's a lot of stuff going on that I can't even keep track of anymore. I don't know if you guys are seeing it. I'm getting calls and emails and tweets and stuff saying, "Oh, we're doing this with baselining," and I'm like, "Well, I didn't even know you guys who you were." So there's always going to be that going on, and that's a healthy ecosystem, as I'm sure that those of us who've done this before, Connor and Charles and others, that's a good thing. But it's nice to sort of have a unifying thing. So the SAP Dynamics thing is a really great unifying thing to hang our hats on while other things go on, like components and integrations. Okay, so the next thing is maintainers. We want to review any candidates. I erred on our last meeting by forgetting that the TSC meeting is not where we approve maintainer candidates. That's for maintainers. So we won't make that mistake again, but we can, if there's any issues, then we can vet that. And then finally, brief discussion of energizing and timing of specifications initiative. Peppered in this will be screaming children, which apparently is the new normal. Anyway, so I tell my wife it's okay for there to be screaming children, but on a conference call there can't be any screaming adults. Anyway. All right. So does anybody have anything else to add to the agenda? Going once, going twice. All right. I will add one thing to the end. I've got a sponsorship letter that I'm going to be sending out, and I would like to review it with you guys before I do so. All right. Karthik, Brian, Kyle, Stefan, do you guys want to say a few words about the SAP Dynamics work?
Yeah, I'm happy to start and to give some context. We divided, so to say, the teams a little bit. Unibright working on the SAP side, then on the actual connection from SAP to a domain model and service that then integrates to Baseline, and Kyle can give us more insights on the latter part later. And just to give you some perspective how we thought to tackle the whole thing, I can share my screen if I'm allowed to. Can you see my my screen already? Yeah, okay. So this is our internal documentation on how we move on from the development. And just to give you this perspective, how actually an SAP user should feel a baseline process, our understanding, he still starts with his main process view within SAP. So he goes for a request for quotation to be sent out to different suppliers. And quotation just means the same as request for proposal. It's just a different wording. And if I switch to German, it even gets worse. And then he asks for, say, 2 different products, or how SAP calls it, materials, in different desired quantities. This is not mandatory, but yeah, we deliver the quantities right away. And from that time, he always should be able to stick in his domain, meaning staying in his SAP system, always having the chance to check back if the communication to suppliers has been baseline, so to make actual benefits from baseline without noticing that he actually uses it. So this is always the main thing with integration topics, that the better the integration works, the less it's notable for the actual user that it's integrated with other systems. So this is all on behalf of the buyer role, who places the request for quotation, and then the thing is baselined, sent out to potential suppliers. They do their work on their ERP system, which most hopefully will be a dynamic system within that demo. And then they put their proposals back. And again, for the supplier, should it just appear in his SAP system, in his ERP system, that he now gets different proposals with different price scales, just as we know it from the Radish UI demo. And then the final step is to actually make a decision process within SAP or manually, whatever, and in the end place a standard purchase order against this proposal. And to support this process from a view, domain specialist view, we implemented some kind of very easy and simplified schemas for the different objects, like purchase orders, order items, proposals. So very basic, a very basic and simplified domain model, and also a proxy with different service endpoints where you can ask for current proposals for your ERP system and place purchase orders or get purchase orders, depending if you are a supplier or a buyer. So this is the part where it actually should just look like old ERP integration stuff without knowing that something is baselined. And from that proxy, we actually integrate into the stack that finally works with the Radish and baseline and provide components. And Kyle perhaps can step in here.
Yeah, sure. Let me share it and sort of, I think it's a good place to
I feel like golf clap is in order for that presentation before we move on. That was exciting, actually. Again, boring is the new exciting, and that was excitingly boring.
Yeah, I can make it even more boring. There's a lot of potential there.
Let me see how boring this can be. Okay, so essentially this is the environment that we're looking at, and so like most of you guys, this isn't like new like to most of you. I'm sure probably everyone on this call at some point or another, the process of going through and like setting up a new project, and then at the end of the day, this is sort of the the stack that Stefan is talking about. This is the proxy that he's talking about, except we're actually running it centralized, in a central box right now. But I think we just got the Docker image for this working. So once and some of these statuses are like will come out like sort of fluctuate between available and unreachable. And so it's just working on hardening that up, as well as this baseline container right here is a merged view of the API and the messaging service that we have currently in baseline in the Radish repo, and that's because of this import cycle on those between those services. Essentially, what Stefan's connector or the proxy that we have that he was mentioning is able to use a local version of these ident and build my microservices, which are provide microservices that ident VINs bearer tokens, signs and like VINs bearer tokens on behalf of each organization in the demo. And then those organizations can use Goldmine to essentially translate between the DTO, the domain, and the baseline protocol. And so we're using leveraging some work that Karthik has put in on a more generalized circuit, and I'll be reaching out to him today to sort of show off where this is and get feedback as we tighten things up. Should have some live demo this week as planned.
Yeah, perhaps to give one short addition to that. In the end, we now created an architecture where the actual entry point for every domain specialist is a proxy where everybody can work with DTOs that come from the domain of a procurement case, and the actual I think you called it just translation, Kyle, to the baseline stack is then handled automatically, including identity mapping and single sign-on mechanisms. Mm-hmm. So for the demo, it will be interesting to show how easy in the end it looks like for the different users, but still find a way to show that it's really baseline. Because as I said before, the greatest thing would be that it's just as boring for the participants that they don't know what's happening in the background, because it just works. But we have to find a way for the storytelling, of course, for our demo, that everybody understands how great baselining actually is.
Of course, yeah. And I'm thinking just like the logs in the blockchain itself, right? Yeah. Like the shield contract logs, and those will be the way that we want to do that.
So any input for making this boring part even more boring or exciting is, of course, where we will.
Yeah, I think we might be able to help with that using some Splunk stuff too, to kind of visualize what's happening and what different sides can see.
Cool. Yeah, Nate, we can talk about that.
There's a lot of interesting log file stuff been cooking up. I'm particularly interested in the notion of baselined log files, right? Like actually make verified, consistent log files from different systems.
I think we're very, very close to having the ability to start sending in all sorts of different like basically creating calculating new witnesses for new flows very quickly very soon. So I think it'll be pretty interesting.
I'd like to say before we move on that Kyle, that's a great example of the notion of enlightened self-interest in action, right? You've got this product you're cooking. It's sort of, to me, sort of an integration packager. And, you know,
we'll make sure you fully know what it is. We'll settle this at some point.
Well, and it's a good example of, you know, using, you know, stuff that, you know, your company has got to, so that you're featuring, you know, your stuff. It's benefiting your company. There's, you know, you can draw a straight line to benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, you know, we definitely had, you know, a lot of the orchestration pieces in, and we always wanted to integrate with SAP, but how the hell were we going to do that?
Yeah.
You know, it's great opportunities there.
Yeah, I'm making this point to, you know, for the record, to encourage people that, you know, sometimes folks are a little squeamish about being overtly partisan about their products, but it's kind of
not here. But at the same time, I will say that you know, the community is of utmost importance. You know, I think this is such a well-aligned effort.
Yeah, so I'd let you be a good example to others on that. All right, is that the full review?
I think from our side for today, but yeah,
Okay,
I think for the next couple of days we'll have something a lot more boring.
I'm told that the dynamic side of it is underway as well, and that Daniel and team can discuss that on the SSE call next Monday, and that we will probably be able to announce, I think maybe soft announces. We have Paul and I are doing, actually we're doing a bunch of stuff. Ethereal is today and tomorrow. I'll be on camera for that. And then next week, Consensus. Paul has a keynote, which is going to be exciting, at 8 o'clock on, I think, Monday night Eastern. And then there's a day later, Paul and I are going to do the, you know, kind of our song and dance routine. And I'd love to be able to say, and look what's coming.
Yeah, I'll circle back with the group tomorrow at the latest and give an update so you have good information.
Okay, good. Well done. Kyle, you want to, I guess you're up again. Short preview on on-demand baselining. Do you want it, or do you want to take it?
I mean, I think everyone on this call has more or less seen the demo of that, you know, and sort of understands what like the gist of that is, especially in the context that I just shared. So I don't want to be too repetitive.
All the way through to the contract management thing that shall not be named.
Yeah, let's save that for our next call, I think. I think the next time that we share, like once this generalized circuit piece is fully integrated, we'll actually be able to see that thing, you know, create and sort of ping pong between parties. I think that'll be a little bit more compelling. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to sharing.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, stay tuned for some exciting stuff there. I love the idea of the next thing being not just a big company with Dynamics and a big company with SAP, but a big company with SAP, a big company with Dynamics, and a little company using, you know, getting a instant baselined Mongo system, you know, coming off the back of a contract that they digitally signed. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing that. Thanks, John.
Okay. Maintainers review of new candidates, brief report on how contributions are going, discussion of methods and practices for connecting issues, pull requests to roadmap dashboards. We can leave that one for the last. Brian, I don't see Kartik on. So Brian, it's on you. Did we lose Brian too, or is my screen just wrong? No, we might have lost Brian. He was on before. All right, so I guess we'll, he saw you looking for him and ran. Thanks, Charles. Can somebody ping Brian? Connor, do you have your Consensus account still?
I've got the Slack one.
Yeah, your Slack. Can you ping Brian through Consensus Slack? See if he's having any trouble, and we'll move on to. I guess we'll move on to. We'll start with this. So let me share my screen. I'm inclined. This is the. I was going to send this last night to the membership, which is now like, I don't know, closing on 500 people. But I thought, this is something that ought to be reviewed with the TSC before I do so. Oasis has been helping us with a ton of stuff, and in particular, it's time to start talking about, even though COVID, hashtag COVID is a problem for everyone, there comes a time when we have to work on the money side of things. So I'm saying from all of the organizers of the Baseline community, we want to thank you for being part of this work. Nobody expected that we'd go from 3 companies to hundreds in just a few weeks, and that kind of growth is exciting, and it's leading to real results posting sooner than expected. This is clear, I think, to everyone. Stay tuned for announcements on the SAP Dynamics thing. I might just leave it at that. One of the main reasons we chose the Ethereum Oasis project to govern the Baseline protocol is that it allows everyone to contribute and to have a say in the direction of the initiative without requiring any participation fees. It costs nothing to be a contributor, it costs nothing to be a TSC or SSE member, and no amount of sponsorship money buys a single vote on who becomes a maintainer or sits on the technical TSC. We're 100% committed to that. That said, some sponsorship funding is going to be important to support the remarkable growth. The Oasis team has been kind in supporting us at levels I think we'd all agree, way over what the funding from just 3 parties, EEA, Consensus, and Ethereum Foundation would normally permit. And that is, re-up for them is coming up in May. And so we're hopeful that works out well. But I'm hopeful that we can get at least a few more in that time frame, or at least in the June time frame. Oasis provides all the collaboration tools, infrastructure, IP management, governance, and all the community support we get from Jory and the rest of the staff. So please help if you can by encouraging your employer to become a Baseline sponsor. Annual dues are reasonable and set on a sliding scale. Basically, if you're a small company, it's like $1,000. If you're a giant company, it caps out at $25,000, which is remarkably low given I remember the check I had to pay to Hyperledger on day one on a 2-year contract, as I recall. Funding also will let us help set up developer incentive programs to reward outstanding contributors and encouraging work on critical areas. So what I'm working with Oasis on right now are the details on a premium sponsorship where people paying above the base level would have a say in what things get incentivized. And that would be the benefit for them. So a little bit of a sort of a special closet counsel on that, reportable to the TSC, of course. We'll be holding a short briefing on that on the 21st, et cetera, et cetera. Does anyone have any violent and negative reactions to this note, or any reason for us to pause or not send it, or any other discussion point?
Would this be the same audience that gets the news about the things that are announced here? So, for example, stay tuned for announcements on the SAP Dynamics integration. So we basically work on the audience to see the demo already with this kind of mailings then.
Yeah, by the 21st, if I understand what your point was, on the 21st, we would be able to, we can bring that up in the, just to make the point that there is value here, that everybody's getting value, that the work is important, and that there is progress. Right. Like I said, I think what we wanted to do is cut the difference of nobody should feel like they have to pay a dime. This is kind of like public radio, right?
Yep.
But for those who can, there's real benefit that could come from the to the community, and I think it would be great to have a little bit of a war chest for doing things like the Gitcoin hackathons and Gitcoin bounties and that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be a big number, but it'd be nice to have something there. Sound right? All right, I'm not going to belabor it. If nobody has a violent reaction to this, I'm going to send it after the call. and it'll go to all the members. Thanks for the time on that, everybody. I'm seeing a chat. No objections. Got it. All right. Was Brian able to, Connor, did you catch him?
So he, I sent him a message, but he hadn't responded when I checked just now. And
he's writing in Slack that he's not able to join due to technical difficulties, but Avia is on it as I see it.
Got it. Thank you. All right. I think we'll circle back with Brian on that. The reason why I'm Brian and so we'll have to. I don't think that there are any new maintainers. Does anybody on the TSC have new maintainers they want to nominate that we can relay after the meeting?
I would say Thomas from Nethermind, but maybe we can wait until he's actually made some contributions, to the repo. But I'd say that would be one that would be coming very soon. Right on.
Yeah. So is everybody familiar now with the rules that we promulgated on the new docs update? So to get right access to the repo and to become a maintainer, you have to have already submitted some pull requests, or at least one, signed the ICLA, blah, blah, blah. And then that will give you, and then the maintainers can vote on you for that. For SSC members, which is becoming a large group, and I think that's okay. It's actually quite good. They're getting write access to the roadmap repo and read access to the core baseline repo. This will allow them to be put onto or put other people onto issues, manage those issues and epics, but it won't give them the ability to push directly to any of the branches on the code repo, because they won't necessarily have signed the ICLA. If they're a contributor, then they're signing the ICLA there. I think that's pretty elegant, and it also keeps the main baseline repo clutter free. So I'm glad that we wound up on that. Does anybody have any issues there?
I'm finally looking at the GitHub issues. As sort of comment.
So the main thing that seems that we need to, there's two things remaining then, if we're not going to go into that more until next meeting. And the two remaining things are roadmap hygiene, and this is going to be a topic especially for the SSC. For the TSC, it has to do with making sure that our engineering work is getting represented on the roadmap, or getting rolled up to the dashboard. And this is never going to be perfect, but it would be great if we could start to really get that hygiene going. So this is a conversation I wanted to bring up for the TSC, but also for the upcoming contributor/maintainer meetings, so that we can get this into the culture of the open organization here. You guys have seen this before. I'd like to just whack through the main headers and see if we're missing any. POCs and demos, documentation, specifications, and you'll note we've got a long way to go there. Security. There was some discussion of whether or not security should go somewhere within something else, but at the end of the day, Eric, I bet you would say security needs to be a top level project level thing.
Yeah, that's cross-cutting, I would say, would be my vote.
I agree. Marketing and comms. Jack is on the line. Jack has really stepped up to be a leader in the communications side of the community. Jack, we're really glad to have you. Community organization, tools, integrations, and key components. I'd love it if somebody could step up and say, missed one, It'd be a good time to say so. Or, maybe in the shower after, tomorrow morning, you're like, oh, wait a minute, you forgot one.
Where would networks go? Like, where would I guess specifications covers that? Like the main net, right?
Say more about networks. I mean, yeah. Do you mean?
I would say that's under specifications.
Well, everything's kind of under specifications. Specifications is really the project for writing the specifications, the standards.
Right. Which I think the main net sort of standard would fall under that documentation, probably.
Yeah. Oh, unless you're talking about an integration with, like you say, well, there's a different. We want to integrate with with some other network.
Yeah, that kind of begs the question whether we need kind of an operations section, right? Because like networks to me would be part of ops, right? Which is all your operational real world, like in progress stacks, so all these stuff that's operating, and we might have an operational concern over.
Yeah.
So we might.
That's interesting. I mean, outside of tools, do we want a that doesn't sound like to me like networks, but you're making me think of
ops,
some kind of DevOps or ops or DevOps, right?
I think more general is better.
So,
could we call that like infrastructure? Would that be like a high level kind of thing for all of this?
Well, if you're thinking about like packaging and, whether it's in Docker or what, or configuration files and stuff, a lot of the stuff that Kyle works on.
I work on configuration files, John. Come on, man.
I didn't mean to make that sound.
I'm just kidding.
Diminutive. That's an important.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, YAML, stuff.
Yeah, I mean, normally you would have like ops, right? And then you've got various concerns under that. You've got, your tooling and your DevOps and your active networks and your, I don't know how much it's our purview to really handle like operational issues here, right? That might actually bleed out into the organizations that are, operationally handling all of their baselines. But like Kyle, we talked in our meeting about like, for example, the circuit mapping and the circuit registry, right? Those things are actually going to become really important. And we might want to consider not only our internal, operations, and deployments, right? There we go. That might be a good way to put it, deployment and ops. But also...
Would that be embodied in our case? Would it be something like, would provide stuff go into that bucket to say, yeah, this is the deployment. This is one way of deploying stuff. Here's your cloud deployment module. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's one. Yeah, a good like sort of like example implementation that sort of gets us going. But yeah, sorry.
Deployment and ops stuff. Deployment and ops.
Yeah, deployment and ops is enough there. Like,
I guess,
yeah. So, yeah, it's just, there's a bunch of stuff coming that we need to talk about. And Kyle and I have had some conversations around this in an offline meeting. And there's a whole suite of operational concerns coming for baselining. And if we just have a slot to put those in, we should have that.
And we shouldn't put it in tools. And we could put it under tools, say tools for deployment and ops, but you think it should be a top level thing?
Yeah, because tooling is another but related segment. There'll be tooling for lots of things. Like there might be like specific, code tooling or specific CI tooling or something like that might not actually be related to larger operational, concepts. So they are somewhat related. So we might find there's some cross-cutting going on here in our top.
It always is, right? I remember back in '84 when I was at Carnegie Mellon, it was the heyday of ontologies and AI and Lisp, and
Right.
And psych, and it was just like, okay, does this thing go in that thing, or is that, it was just like a shell game of box, which box goes into which box.
Yeah,
that's important.
Right.
That's kind of what we do, is put boxes and stuff.
Yeah, the thing that seemed like it was missing here to me was all of the op stuff, and so security is, of course, part of that, but it's usually its own cross-cutting concern, because you also have like non-operational security concerns, right? So there's overlap, but not strict one-to-one mapping. So tools are the same. You've got a bunch of tools. Some of them will not be operational. They'll be dev tools. They'll be static tools.
And the wonderful thing about this is that you can have an epic or an issue that rolls up to both, right? I can put, so if I go in here into tools, and right now there's just ROI calculator. So we've got a lot of work to do wiring up. There's a lot of stuff going on in the baseline repo that is not wired up to these higher level dashboard items. And that's the work that I'd really like to see us take on in the next week, to the best of our ability, right? I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but as you can see down here, you can add different, I could roll this up to an epic that's rolling up into DevOps or into ops and into tools. And it would show up on the dashboard in both places.
Yeah, I'm about to go through and do this.
Yeah. Gotta love multiple inheritance. So
yeah. So I don't want to make it more complicated than that right now. I mean, obviously, we could do multiple bifurcations of operations. For right now, we'll just roll everything up to one main category, and then when it gets too big or too bloated, we'll segment it out.
Right on. So say we all? Any issues? So say we all. POCs and demos, everything else okay? Any others that we haven't thought of? It's a living document. It can change later, but. All right, we'll leave it at this for now. I will ignore the 6-year-old pounding on my door and move on to, okay, so one of the things that we really need to do here, I'm looking at the time, I think we have just enough time to go to look down into each one of these and see where the work needs to be done. What I would really like to see is all of us who are doing, especially, and I'm talking with Brian and Karthik about this as well, is to make sure that we're not missing important stuff that's going on that isn't getting rolled up into this stuff. Right. So there's a lot of just straight up good engineering going on down on the repo. Kyle, you're involved in a lot of that. Do you see anything that's missing?
I'm not sure offhand, but I'll follow up. Like I'm going to go through. I'm sort of got it pulled up and try to go through and do a pass on it. And
I mean, here's and by the way, that's the other thing that we've got to talk about, and especially on the contributor call, is here are the issues in the baseline repo, and it's all still in new issues. We really haven't gotten into any pipelining. So, and I haven't been inclined to criticize anybody about that, because it's a process and it's a maturity stage. But I think it'd be a good idea for the maintainers to start working that. Yes.
As I take this pass, I can try to move cards around so they're in the right spot, at least just over this pass, and see if that gets us at least. Just from my perspective, and then we can, I can share that with everyone else, and they can take a pass and move cards around too, and we can fairly quickly have an updated view.
Kyle, could you take this to the maintainer team and say, hey, let's, I think by the next TSC meeting, it'd be great if we had a road mapping, milestoning, lightweight process. That we can teach to new contributors and that sort of thing. It's never going to be perfect in an open source world, but and
no problem.
It's not like we're a single company doing a single project, but we can get there are some good practices that we can apply.
Sure. Yeah, I'll talk with Brian especially.
Great. It would be great if we could write it down. Right, you could say here's how we label. Here's how a thing gets into, whatever pipeline we're talking about. You'll see on the baseline, the main roadmap, ZenHub. Is everybody on ZenHub now? Is everybody good? Anybody not good? Everybody got it? Okay, good. I'll take that as a yes. So in here, you'll see that everything shows up as a new epic, and we can have both repos. I'm actually going to put the website repo in here as well. So we've got all new epics in the baseline roadmap repo show up here, and mainly the roadmap repo should only be epics. And then maybe some issues that have nothing to do with engineering, like some of the things that Avi and I are doing to kind of organize stuff. Roadmap project level epics. In the roadmap, you'll notice that we can only go down one. You can't nest any farther, and that's a feature, not a bug. This is the roll up. And so, you can go down into an epic here, but these are the top level epics. And one good practice here is if it's an epic at this level, it shouldn't be one that goes away, right? It should be rolling up things that go away. And so if like this SAP Dynamics one, Stefan and team, this one could, if this was wired up properly, there would be, I think, a lot of issues in epics that you guys are working that would roll up into this one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think after this first pass, it's a lot more scalable from like an ongoing iterative perspective.
Yeah. And then we could just look, at a glance in these 1 hour meetings and go, oh yeah, 3 of the 5 things that we needed to do are done. Good, cool. What are there any blockers or any things that we need to highlight to the community? Okay, so yeah, that would be the goal by next meeting is for us to have things like that wired up, and I think that's it. The other thing I want to, this is kind of a PSA, is if you go back over to the baseline one, to the Kanban board, we did a lot of these we wrote a bunch of epics sort of in a first attempt at this sort of thing in the baseline repo, not the baseline roadmap repo. My intention is sometime this week or next to either move or eliminate many of those in this original roadmap, because they're either redundant to the ones that are now in the other repo now, or they just never became a thing. But I don't want to wreck anybody's day. So Kyle, if you could audible this to the maintainers. And I want to make sure that before I knock any of these out or move them, that it's not something that people are reliant upon. So the general word should be, if it's a high level project or epic in the baseline repo, it's going to be deprecated and moved to the baseline. It's just a house cleaning kind of action.
Yeah, I'll agree with Brian and the others.
Sorry, I'm not clear. Do you want us to close those epics?
You could close them or you could move them. Either way is fine.
Okay.
Or you could close them and then reinstantiate them in the other repo, whatever, Well, I don't think there's much going on there, because it's not like anybody really got reliant upon this roadmap level in the last few weeks. So we're not there yet. So it shouldn't be a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll close them then.
Thanks. Just the ones in the baseline repo.
Yep.
If you could keep an eye, just glance over at the baseline roadmap repo, and if it's something that needs to persist and it's not there, move it. Okay, cool.
Brian, are you looking are you going to close this right now? It sounded like you were. Like right this very moment.
I mean, I was looking at them this morning, and
yeah. What I was trying to get at is I'm like about to do a once over, and so I was wondering if I should Let's just talk after this for a minute.
Okay.
It might be great to bring it up as a topic in the contributors call. Yeah, we can hold off until then. All right. That leaves us 14 minutes. And boy, I think from a time perspective, this meeting is going like textbook. The only thing remaining on the list is to discuss what the shiny object for the next 2 weeks is going to be. We're wrapping up the SAP Dynamics shiny object. What's the one thing that as a TSC we want to encourage people to keep an eye on? And then maybe as a corollary to that, are there things that are not shiny objects that we want to, also sort of be mindful that the important work is going on over there? What are the one or two things that are important?
From a non-shiny perspective, we have the packaging of the various. We have a good number of packages that are sort of initialized for creating a more generic the protocol. In the core package, we've got like five of those packages have been stood up. I think it's maybe a good place to say, hey, we're making progress towards generalizing things. Take a look over here, sort of thing.
And when you say packaging, are we talking about deployment packaging, or are we talking about abstraction?
Sorry, no, like the abstraction of the protocol, like starting to see some at baseline / messaging at baseline / privacy sort of these generalized packages. There's the branch that we have that has I believe 5 sub modules or 5 standalone NPM packages that have taken shape. I mean, they're taking shape at least.
Oh, that we're taking from Radish and turning into the baseline folder.
Yeah, or we're learning from Radish, and for example, Sam and I sort of tag teamed the messaging piece. So Nats is the first, or the messaging package is further along than the others. It has like a standard interface for like a messaging service, and Sam refactored Whisper to use this interface, and then we have the Nats implementation of it. So now then Sam actually implemented that in the messenger service in the Radish, and so that's one example. So I think that
let me ask you, and let me ask everyone: is there the abstraction and generalization process to go from Radish to the generalized protocol? Does that deserve or require a project level thing here, or is it really a emergent property of doing like key components and integrations and such?
Yeah, I don't think it needs a top level item just yet.
So where would what you just described live in the dashboard today?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of specifications and key components. Yeah, I think I think you're on right there.
All right, cool. And by the way, that would be some work to do, right? I only put the ZK and messaging services in here. There's a lot more that are not.
Yeah, I can add a few for sure.
Great. Yeah. By the way, specifications to me is the actual writing of.
Yeah.
So here's the baseline to EEA/EF standard sync, on-chain components standard, off-chain components standard. But this is this should be the writing of those requirements or those specifications. By the way, we're really lucky to have people like Dan, Burnett, and Charles who really know this stuff. And I don't know if anybody else knows, but I don't think we have somebody standing up to take accountability as the czar of standard or specifications for baseline specifically yet. So I guess I'm going to make a PSA here, or an APB call to say all points bulletin looking for somebody that wants to, again, be accountable for it, not necessarily do the work, but to make sure the work gets done.
George has been doing the work. I think what could be still, to your point, for someone to maybe own that responsibility.
By the way, Charles, that was not a that was not a clever way of suggesting that you should be that guy. I know you've got a lot of commitments, but we are lucky to have you. Dan sent me a whole list of things that we need to be mindful of regarding the standards work. Like, simple things like don't put should in there. Should be no should keyword, stuff like that. Okay, what else? So that I would call that meat and potatoes. What's the shiny thing? Like, what is the big thing that we can say? The next thing that we're going to see. We just did SAP Dynamics. What's the next thing? Next big sort of pile-on project for like the May-June timeframe that we want to start to get people excited about?
DocuSign will be cool, but I don't want to dominate the conversation here. I think the DocuSign integration will be. Sorry, I think the DocuSign integration will be cool and very, very shiny. But I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'd love to let someone else say there's a shiny thing.
I remember saying that there were three things in a couple meetings ago. There were three things. It was the radish, or that we should show real integrations, that we should get specifications underway, and that we should get use cases defined. Tosh and company from the Mainnet working group have finished their use case survey project. And I will bring that to the SSC and to the next TSC, the results from that. So that means we have two of the three things that we needed to really get on. Specifications is the next one. But I think we can afford to have now another, what is the one after that? So, or what is, we can multi-thread a real actual project. And so DocuSign is kind of maybe one of them. That's kind of interesting. Is,
I definitely say it's going to be very shiny.
It's going to be shiny, yeah. What Zach? I'm looking at Zach, Johan, Hudson's on. Could this be something to do with are we ready for something shiny around ZK? Somebody has suggested that we try to create a zero knowledge or a Socrates library that's more extensive than just MSA, or let's create the toolkit for going for the happy path or the fast path for taking MSA to POC, and now show how, if you wanted to not only do it but show the cookbook for going to creating an invoice. Right, and then that would be, and this is how we did it. This is how you do an invoice, but you could do any other step in a similar fashion, sort of Julia Child's, cooking show style. Do a video, so that how to create a new workflow step that isn't one that we've already done. That seemed kind of shiny. From there, how to create a new Socrates library item, create a Socrates, a library for Socrates circuits. That could be shiny. I think if we were to do the invoice item or workflow step, the next one after that would clearly be shiny is how to take an invoice baseline proof of an invoice and turn that into a digital asset that can be done, used in some kind of DeFi thing. Mm-hmm. I'm just throwing stuff out. I'm waiting for somebody to jump in and get excited. I'm going to do that thing. We got 5 minutes left. I'm going to do that thing where I stop talking for 7 minutes and make everybody uncomfortable until they talk.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting. I'm wondering about whether it would be good to have to kind of spec out maybe what they are moving beyond POCs to something deployable. What the security requirements are on the properties. For example, things surrounding trusted setups. Is it okay to have people deploying new baseline if the baseline build is extended for more custom functionality, is it okay to expect to use people deploying their solutions to have to run their own trusted setups? Things like that might be.
That's one of the things that the shuttle front end sort of, the deployment automation that we've been looking at does, is it stands up containers on an organization's own infrastructure and then we run those setups.
Yeah, well, that's good, I think. But what I heard you saying also, though, was that this is maybe, what does it mean to be production ready? Or getting tools to do production, quote unquote, production readiness. We haven't really talked about that.
I think that's where the security piece really comes in, for sure.
Well, security is part of it. But then you have, disaster recovery and high availability and a kind of enterprise level assurances that are required for data integrity. Performance is part of it. Cost is part of it. There's a number of factors.
Yeah. I think documenting all this, Brian, would be awesome.
A lot.
You're
standards like compliances that are available. We could look into. If you want to go for specific industries like SOC or SOC 2 compliance and stuff like that. So it'd be good to maybe have some TSC discussions around that, maybe the SSC as well, to get a sense of what does everyone mean when they say production ready, and is baseline that, and what do we need to do to get there. Having automated deployments and stuff is a great step in that direction.
Yeah, I think there's more to what I mentioned than just automated deployments, but I would say there's a lot of gap analysis that needs to be done in terms of what's missing, in terms of what is, to your point, what does it mean to be production ready?
And I would say
what is this tool? Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think gap analysis would be what we would do once we know what.
Right. What does it mean to be production ready? What does it mean? And then what are the gaps?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I added in specifications. I added a definitions of production readiness. Once again, this is kind of nice that we have a separate repo for these things, so I'm not cluttering up the main repo. I also put a ZK circuit libraries thing. Brian, in particular, I know you've asked a question about this. Anything that looks like an epic inside the roadmap repo is a suggestion of a box. So we can take them seriously, but also not too seriously. We can move them around, but right now they're just contained. They're basically placeholders to say, stuff might go in here.
Okay.
And then they will either live or die, right? Like the circuit libraries might find themselves just in some other kind of thing, or it might take on a life of its own and become a thing.
I guess it would be good to, as long as we have a regular cadence of cleaning.
Yep.
Because it's just, we keep adding empty boxes and that's all we end up having are empty boxes and all these things.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to get past that stage of maturity by next meeting, where we actually have wired these things up, and the ones that don't ever get wired up just get lopped off.
Reasonable.
All right. Well, everybody, we are at the top of the hour. I don't know about you, but I feel like this was a pretty good meeting. I feel like we got a long way, and anybody, after meeting actions are to sort of roll up what we've thought about, and I'll try to get around to everybody, but let's maybe have some chatter on the Slack channel for the TSC Slack channel to talk about, because I don't think we really concluded what the next shiny object was, but I do think that we enumerated a few candidates, and if we're not ready to kind of go all in on one of them, that's fine. We might not go all in on one of them. There might be a few, but it'd be good to have some chatter between now and the next meeting so that by the next meeting, maybe something has kind of come to the top. All right. Have a great, be safe. Have a great upcoming weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks on this call.
Thanks, John. You too.
Hi, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.